Okay, beautiful. We are now recording. Welcome to the next level leadership masterclass. If you're here live, hello. Hello, Lisa. I already said hi to you. And if you're catching the recording, feel free to respond to the email that this is coming in and reach out with breakthroughs, ahas, insights. So we're probably going to go for about an hour or so, depending on where I go with this. I have a long list. It's not that long, but a list of things I want to take you through in regards to why I put this together. So I know a few of you who I saw on the list of signups and don't know me yet based on my interactions with you personally. So if you're watching this, I'm Jonathan Perez. I have been in this work for, at this point, 9 or 10 years, give or take. And in particular, the topic of leadership is one that fascinates me. But what I've learned in my own journey is that what we do doesn't necessarily define us as great leaders. It's rather who we are and how we show up in the world. So that's what inspired me to create this. And in my own journey as well, I've tried and tested and experimented and done so many things in the domain of personal development, spirituality, leadership. And a lot of the time, it was just up here. It was just literally up in the head. And I was trying to understand if I'm doing all the right things, then why is it that people are still giving me the feedback that they can't feel me as a leader, or they can't feel me as an individual, and they can't feel my mission, my purpose, my passion? And so that's what struck me. And that took me down a path of exploring in my own journey. Well, what is it about these individuals who do seem to be able to move a room, who do seem to be able to influence and have an impact, but the way that they do it is actually effortless in the way that it seems. It's effortless because it doesn't look like on the outside that they're doing more per se. It just looks like they're actually doing less in some ways than others who are trying so hard. And I used to be one of those people, right? I would try and do all the things, I would try and say all the right things, and it was just not working. So, what I want to take you through today are some specific things that you can think about and consider and also contemplate, because I promised in the copy or in the text and everything I wrote that some of the things I want to bring forward in the list I have here are things that will challenge you to look at parts of yourself where you are incongruent in terms of how you're showing up in the world. And that, to me, the reason I'm bringing this topic forward is because what I learned is that I myself was incongruent. And what that means in the simplest way is I would say one thing. So let's just say I'm going to, in a group environment, I'm saying one thing, but then behind closed doors, when I'm alone or when no one's watching, I would be showing up differently. And so that incongruence, what happens is that even though we think, and I had to learn this, even though we think people can't feel it or people aren't aware of it, even if they're not conscious of it, I always like to say our human bullshit meters are extremely strong. And so therefore people were feeling it. But sometimes people aren't aware of what they're feeling. They just feel this sense of like, this person, I don't really trust them. And I started to realize that because I was encountering people who now in retrospect were also incongruent. And there are some of my friends of mine now who would also tell me now, yeah, man, I was incongruent back then too. And I couldn't understand why people wouldn't feel me. And so for me, I then had to look at, okay, what am I saying over here? And then how am I actually showing up over here that I can bring into congruence, into alignment? And when I use the words, even on my social media, for example, when I talk about living in your truth, it just means that what you are, who you are, is who you say you are. There's nothing to hide. It's just you. You just own where you are in your life. You own where you are in your personal journey. You own your mistakes, your past, all you just own it. And there's nothing to hide. And so therefore, what happens is that the incongruence, let's just say this is incongruent, it starts to bridge because literally you are not trying to put on a performance, or you are not trying to be someone who you say you're not, or you're not trying to be someone you're not. even though you're saying you are something else. And so what we're going to work on is bringing that congruence into place. So the first question then that I'm going to ask you, because I'm going to probably go out of order on how I wrote these in my notes here, but the main thing we want to start to look at to come into congruence is, are we as individuals taking responsibility for our life, for all parts of our life? And so we have to look at, okay, well, where am I, for example, still being a victim or still blaming someone for something that happened or something that's going on right now? And the reason I saw that show up for me was that I was playing the part that, oh, I have it all under control over here. But the reality was that secretly or behind closed doors, I was still blaming someone. I was still angry. I was still kind of resentful. And so I had to look at, I'm not necessarily taking full responsibility there because I'm still blaming someone. And so what this means, 100% responsibility, we're going to break it down a little bit more, is that and if you're here, I would assume you have at least some of this belief. And if you don't, just get curious about it. But if you're here and you resonate with anything that I have to share and you signed up, it's because at some level you believe that you are the creator of your life. At some level, you believe that. And so if that's true, then I challenged people I work with to say, okay, well, if that's true, then anything that's going on in your life, in a way, came from you. In other words, you are creating the reality you're in consciously or unconsciously. It just is. But to the degree you're willing to own your role as the creator is to the degree that you would be willing to take responsibility. And so I always see when people, and me too, right, when I've gone through this, is when I wasn't taking 100% responsibility, it's because I still fully didn't believe or agree with or accept the idea that I was creating my life. So in order for me to accept the idea that I'm creating my life, all of it, the only way to do that is if you're taking 100% responsibility. So if that's true, then in any situation we find ourselves in, why would we blame or be a victim to anything? Now, that we can go really, really deep with this, but the point here is, why would we be a victim to anything if we in some way are creating it? And so when we're a victim to something, and I'm going to speak in this way because I'm sure none of us would necessarily want to hang out with someone that's being a victim all the time, right? But even at the subtle levels, if there's victimization there, we're not in a place of our greatest leadership. So the leaders that I found, just to tie into who I've studied and in my own personal journey, is that the leaders that were magnetic in the ways that were showing up in certain ways, they were willing to take 100% responsibility for all things in their life. And they would literally see their life as their own creation, whether it happened consciously or unconsciously. And so when we do this, then it naturally makes us more magnetic because we're not out there complaining or being a victim about anything. And that in and of itself makes you someone that people want to be around because you inspire them. And there's something about you that is really, really magnetic in the sense that all you stand for is possibility. All you stand for is creation. You don't stand for victimization. And so the thing to look at then is all the situations in your life. Is there anything that maybe you think it's happening out there and it's happening to you? And one of the reasons I'm asking you to look at this is, and it can be anything, by the way. You probably heard of the phrase, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Cool. So this is the invitation then to look at. If there's something in your life that you can look at and you're not looking at how it might be happening for you and for your growth, then you're probably being a victim in some ways. And so here's the thing. Once you start to look at all situations and you look at them from the lens of learning, from the lens of what's here for you to learn, what's here for you to get initiated into, then you would accept also, and this is my belief, is that I really believe that, and I call it my soul. My soul is manifesting certain situations for me to get initiated in that which I say I want. And so again, if I'm creating this, and the I am now, I'm talking at deeper levels, then I'm going to look at all situations and not be victimized by any of it, by any of it. And when I do that, again, there's something that happens that you become magnetic. And one of the reasons that also happens is all of the energy that we spend or utilize in being a victim, complaining and blaming, we take it back. We take it back. And that energy literally grows our field, our energetic field that you can feel. Because I'm sure you've run into someone where you're just like, woof, you can feel their energy. And so for you, as you start to take your power back, your energy back from all the places where you're still being a victim, even the subtle ones, the small ones, you take that energy back, and now it's part of your field. So number one thing here again, are you willing to own that you're the creator of your life? And if you are, then it would mean that you're taking 100% responsibility for everything that's going on in your life, and that you can learn from it and see how it's happening for you. And when you do that, all the energy again that you are using to complain, blame, etc., you take it back. That makes you more magnetic. Okay, next thing here. Okay, this is a big one, and I really wanted to talk about this one. So, agreements. So we tell people we're going to do things, and we also tell ourselves we're going to do things. And one of the things I wrote in the sign up page was this idea that we have to check in with ourselves and see, is my word law? And what that really means, I like the phrase because it has a power to it, but what that really means is, am I following through on what I say I will do? Simple as that. And if I don't, what do I do? Do I clean it up? Do I reach out? Do I say, hey, by the way, I know I agreed to this and I didn't follow through, and I realized I broke trust with you, and I'd love to clean that up, as an example, simple example. But here's the thing. Even if, so there's external agreements, and then there's agreements that we make with ourselves. So agreements that we make with other people, and then agreements that we make with ourselves. The ones out there, I think, are a little bit easier to manage, in my opinion, and in my experience, where I'll make an agreement with Bill, Mary, Bob, right? And those agreements, whether I follow through or not, if I follow through, it builds trust over time. But here's the thing, what also builds trust is if you happen to break that agreement, you follow through on it. So the most magnetic leaders I know, they are so tight and clean with how they make agreements and how they follow through with their agreements. And if they break an agreement or they need to renegotiate, they also keep it super clean, direct, and crisp and clear. And so this is where you get to check in. How am I doing with my own agreements? And if I tell anyone I'm going to do something, do I follow through? And if I don't, do I renegotiate? Do I let them know that I can't do it, or do I just ghost? I used to do the ghosting too. You just ghost. So the external ones, again, we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I forget shit. And my suggestion is I aim to keep like 95%. There's like a 5% window there. Like, oh, sometimes I forget stuff, or it doesn't go on my calendar, or whatever. The reason this is so important is because the more tight you are with making agreements and keeping them super, super, super clean and crisp, is that takes a lot of energy as well. And what takes more energy is when you break an agreement and you don't clean it up, and now you've broken trust. And now, and I'm sure we've all had this, you wake up and it's 3 a.m. and you get the thought that says, oh, shit, I didn't call whoever, I didn't do whatever, and I told them I would. That takes energy, and that takes from your magnetism. So that's why it's so important that we keep our agreements super clean and clear, is the more solid we are there, again, the more energy you get back, the less energy you spend trying to track everything because you know you're keeping up with your agreements. And it just simply makes you more magnetic because you have your energy back to you. You're not spending it where it's not being used up, feeling guilty or shameful because you didn't follow up or you broke trust. So those are external. But now let's get to the big one that I think is even more challenging, the ones we make with ourselves. These are big. These are really big. And so this for me has been the biggest one in the sense that I would say something, and because I'm not being held accountable to anybody, well, let me say that differently. I'm not being held accountable to anybody out there. I'm still being held accountable by me. I would not follow through on what I said I would do. And so what I'm suggesting though is that in the same way we break trust with someone out there, we also break trust with ourselves. And the way that manifests itself then is that the more that happens, the more I don't follow through with what I say I will do or renegotiate with myself powerfully, I then start to lose trust in me. And the more I lose trust in me, the more others can feel, again, the incongruence, like, something off there. And then they can't trust me. Why? Well, they can't trust me because I can't trust me. If I can't trust me, why would they trust me? It doesn't make sense. It just it's not an energetic match. It doesn't make any sense. And so the big invitation here is to consider, how am I doing with making my word law? And when I don't follow through, or I know I can't follow through, how do I deal with those moments? Do I go into shame and guilt and just throw it under the bed or put it in the closet? Or do I take accountability with myself, remove it in my calendar and reorganize, or get back on the train and recommit again? So this one, again, out of all the things I'm going to share with you today, this is probably the biggest one that will make you, I would say, 10x your magnetism in the world, because the more you start to follow through on your word to you and follow through on what you say you're going to do, there's this level of self-trust and self-esteem that starts to build. Boom, 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 boom. And you start to require less validation from out there because you know that you follow through on your word. You don't even need to have anybody tell you that. You just feel it. And if you experience, by the way, imposter syndrome, this is one way to really start to eliminate that, because oftentimes the imposter syndrome, I was thinking about this yesterday when I was contemplating what I wanted to share with you. My imposter syndrome has kicked in the most when I know that I am not truly embodying my message. When I know I'm falling short of the very things I want to bring forward in the world and what I stand for and my values, the imposter syndrome kicks in. It's like, oh, the fuck, well, who the fuck am I to talk about that when I'm not even, that doesn't mean you have to be perfect. But if you're not taking a stand for your standards and your values, to me, it would make sense. Imposter syndrome would kick in a way. It would make sense to me. And so, and sometimes now as I'm saying this is where I think healthy shame, this term healthy shame, can be helpful, because it's showing us where we're out of alignment. So in summary, the trust piece. One, you're going to build more trust if you keep agreements out there with people out there powerfully, renegotiate when you can't follow through on something, and clean those up. Keep that crisp, clean, clear, direct. And if you break trust, how do you rebuild that so that you don't have to be having those 3 a.m. wake ups that tell you, oh shit, I forgot to call Bill. I forgot to send that email or whatever it is. I forgot to, doesn't matter what it is. But the point is, all that energy you get back to you makes you more magnetic than the ones with yourself. How are you doing with those? Where are you following through or not following through with your word? And after we finish today, I encourage you to really sit with this one, because again, the more you start to really take ownership for where you're falling short and you're not in alignment with your message or what you say you stand for, you're not going to have the magnetism and the influence that you want to have. And this is true, not just in like business or entrepreneurship or whatever you're doing, even with your kids, with your family. There's just something that's felt. But your confidence, your power, your self-empowerment, your self-esteem, all of that will keep growing as you become someone who, when you say something, your word is law. And if something needs to change or something needs to get renegotiated, you do that powerfully. No shame, no guilt, just truth, alignment, and clarity. So I'm going to leave that one there, but I trust that you're resonating with that, because for me, again, that's one of the biggest ones. Okay. One of the other ones I wanted to highlight is, and it's kind of connected to the imposter syndrome in some ways, but one of the concepts that to me is really powerful in whatever industry you're in, whatever you do for business, whoever you are, it doesn't matter. Sometimes we tend to make ourselves inferior or superior to others. And when I say I'm really talking about the ego now here. The ego, out of a protection mechanism or survival strategies, it'll oftentimes make itself smaller, inferior, or superior. So one of the things in my philosophy now that's supported me in really expanding my personal power is, even for example with my mentors, when I'm with my mentors or people that I'm learning from, is I used to make myself really small around them because there was a part of me that was still seeking their validation, still seeking their approval. It's as if I wanted mommy or daddy to see me. Now, is there anything wrong with that? Well, no. And that's where the inner child work comes in, the healing work comes in. And so I encourage you to explore different modalities to work on that. Yes. But the more you don't work on that, the more we're still going to look for mommy and daddy to approve of us. And so in order for us to be the magnetic leaders that we want to be and influential people that we want to be, we're going to need to be able to go into any room, and no matter who's there, from the janitor all the way from perhaps the billionaires that people put on a pedestal for whatever reason, and that you as an individual can stand shoulder to shoulder with the janitor and the billionaire, and you see them in the same way. That's powerful. And I've had to learn that, because one of the things that would be easy for me is I would make myself, as an example, inferior with the billionaire and then superior with the janitor. My ego liked that. It's like, oh, yeah. That feels good. But it wasn't clean. It wasn't authentic. And so what I'm suggesting is, as you navigate the world, as you look at your relationships, as you look at how you feel when you go into a room, I really encourage you to look at, it's interesting that when I think about this person, I can feel the part of me that wants to make myself small. And when I look at that person, I can feel a part of myself that feels comfortable and like I even know more than them. And here's the truth, right? You might know more than someone, sure, or you might know less than someone. But what we're talking about here and what I'm suggesting is that a really powerful magnetic leader that has the highest levels of influence is not seeing people based on titles, accomplishments, or how much money they have or what success they have. They're able to see them as humans on the journey. And therefore, you're able to see yourself as a human on the journey. And therefore, based on that philosophy and that perspective, we can now stand shoulder to shoulder with humans, people, regardless of, again, their title, successes, money, and all of that. So when we think about some of the greatest people that are highlighted throughout history, I watched a documentary recently around Muhammad Ali, and I think about other people like Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. These are individuals that, as an example, in my opinion, lived this philosophy that I'm sharing with you. And I can see it in them. They didn't give a shit who someone was. They just saw them and connected with them as people, shoulder to shoulder. Now, the other thing that made them powerful is even though we're standing shoulder to shoulder, we're also aware that we can learn from someone. We can learn from the billionaire and we can learn from the janitor, probably. And so the invitation on that note is, okay, where am I making myself inferior? Or in particular, who is it that's making you feel inferior? Or not, they're not making you, there's something in you that's making yourself inferior. And who is triggering that part that makes me feel superior? And by the way, the superior one is very tricky. The reason I knew I caught this in myself was when I got all spiritual and stuff, quote unquote spiritual. I read the books, I did the courses, I went to the retreats or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm fucking enlightened, yo, let's go. Oh my God, that was embarrassing. But I also love that version of me because he was learning to integrate that part and not think that spiritual knowledge meant that I was better than anybody. That's actually a silly thing. And funny enough, it was creating more separation. I was practicing the opposite of the spiritual philosophies I was learning. That was the ego. It was the ego. And what it would keep me safe from was actually being vulnerable. So, for example, the way that played out was with the janitor, let's just say. It would keep me safe if I can look at the janitor and think that I'm better than him or her, then I don't actually have to be vulnerable or open myself and open my heart to go connect with them. So it would keep me safe. So the ego is very tricky. It'll disguise itself in very pretty spiritual robes, whatever. But the very fear for me was opening my heart and really showing vulnerability around those people or people in general. And so that was one mechanism. The superiority thing was the mechanism that would keep me safe. And so I'm highlighting this so you can just take a look at it because, again, for me, it was like, whoa, I feel so disconnected from people. And the more I did that, the more it would create more separation. I'll share one more quick story with you because that one hit me really hard one day when I was, really deep in this type of work. And I was with my previous partner at that time. And we went to, I think it was like it was a baby shower. And all the people there were just really humble Latino families. And I was getting into this whole world of different type of spirituality, consciousness, blah, 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 right? All these fancy terms that excite people. And it excited me. And so I go there and I can feel myself, that part of me, judging everybody and literally not wanting to go like talk to them because I felt better than them. I felt superior to them. And it was so challenging because it felt funky for me. I'm like, it's so here. I remember that moment so vividly. It's so here, but it's also so not me. What the hell is going on here? But again, in retrospect, what I saw was happening is that at the deepest core, I had a deep desire to want to deeply connect with people. And that mechanism was trying to protect me from the pain of potentially being hurt if I shared something vulnerable with them. So it goes deeper. But the point is here that the very mechanism was actually trying to keep me safe in a weird way. And my ego was actually creating more separation in those moments. And the partner I was with, though, she was like, what is going on? She was like, you're literally like a black cloud, and that's not who you are. And it struck me. I'm like, holy shit, yes. But it was in that moment that I realized that I was making myself superior. The ego was. And so that was a huge breakthrough because then what I practiced was the opposite. Is I would go to things like this now, and I love going to things like this where, especially my ego sometimes likes to bring that story back up once in a while, and I will lean in and go connect with people and love on people and really see the humanity in them, shoulder to shoulder, shoulder to shoulder. Anytime that little superiority thing even pops in, I'm like, nope. I just go practice the opposite and open. Just reveal the heart. So if you have any questions on that one, feel free to let me know. We can go deeper into it or follow up in an email or something, or DM on Instagram. But shoot me a message if that particular one can go really deep. But I really wanted to highlight it because, again, the idea of shoulder to shoulder, has been one of my biggest lessons and learnings and breakthroughs. That, again, the ego, as soon as we gain more knowledge, more consciousness, more awareness, oftentimes the ego can use that as a way to still it's a very interesting power survival shadow dynamic. So I just wanted to put it in here because, again, the people that I've seen really be aware of that complex and they don't let it take them over. They don't shut their light down. They keep their power big. But again, shoulder to shoulder. They know that they're just as powerful as the person next to them, even if the person next to them doesn't yet know that they're that powerful. But they don't make themselves better. So it's huge. Okay, I'm going to leave that one there. So I think it makes sense then to progress into the next piece, which is a really big piece from the next level leadership perspective that I wanted to bring. So one of the things that challenged me the most from the superiority complex was like, well, shit, does that mean I shut down my light? Does that mean I kind of make myself smaller? Like, what do I do? And that took me a little bit of time to really integrate, because the opposite end there was the work was not to make myself small just because that whole shadow thing was going on. And so what's been part of my work and something that I really recognized, and funny because Muhammad Ali, if you ever look him up, right, from the beginning of his career, this dude had like the most delusional levels of conviction that he was the greatest. And there's something powerful in that. And I know that he also did deep shadow work into what we're talking about, right? Because the deeper levels to the maturity in this is how are you also impacting others while you're claiming your fucking power. It's so good. But we're also saying, well, how is that influencing others? And I know that as he got more mature, he would still own that, but it would be in a different way. But even in his younger years, there's something that I had to tap into of like, well, for the leaders that are very magnetic, the leaders that have a lot of influence, there's something in them that has decided that they're the one, that they themselves are divine, extraordinary, amazing, remarkable, you name more words, but they've just decided that they're it. They're it. And they've also decided that they don't need anyone or anything to tell them that. They just know it at the deepest fundamental levels. And so when we know that, though, again, it can play out in a very shadowy way where it's like, fuck everyone, I'm the greatest. Period. That's it. And we miss the connection with people. But if we take in the philosophy of shoulder to shoulder, then I can say, hey, I'm amazing, extraordinary, remarkable, right? Sexy, like what, all the words, like you just name it, you claim it, you own it. And at the same time, what you're saying is you too. And if we think about, for example, I forget where in the Bible it is. I don't identify as a Christian, but I am a follower, or I'm always admiring the life of Jesus Christ, who my understanding is his name is Yeshua. And the point about that is not to get into religion or anything, but one of the phrases he said is, hey, everything I can do, you can do better. But do we have any stories where he actually dimmed his light while he said that to his disciples? I don't think so. He said, no. I am what I say I am, and you are too. And if you choose to own your power in its totality, that you can literally do greater things than I can do. It's like, wow, if we really let that land, there's so much power in that. And so to me, some of the people, again, that have been the most magnetic, influential, and impactful from a leadership standpoint, they see that potential and possibility and how amazing and phenomenal and powerful we are. We see it in other people, but we also see it in ourselves, because you can only see what you are. And so the more that we, and this has been my journey, the more I've chosen to own that power, to own that I am the creator of my life and that I can do anything, literally anything. It has empowered me to a degree that sometimes is hard to put into words. And I, of course, do the work to stay grounded and taking responsibility for my current reality while I build. But there's no question. I used to question it, but the work has also been, oh, well, you know what? No. This power is also in you, in you, in you, in you, in you. And so what inspires me the most now is to rise together. Because now comes in the conversation around individuality, is that we know, me, you, if you're listening to this in the replay, we know that we're all individuals and we all have our unique gifts and our own beautiful idiosyncrasies about what makes us us. And rather than letting the ego get swallowed up and thinking it's special, we realize that, no, I am special, but they are too. And so I'm going to fucking bring out all of my specialness and uniqueness and individuality, and I'm going to own it to the max and shine my light so big so people can feel that. And at the same time, if I'm choosing to take responsibility for my leadership, influence, and impact on others, if that's what you want, if that's what you desire, then what we get really good at is also bringing others up with us. And reminding them, oh, you think I'm powerful? Let me tell you about your power, because what you see, the possibility you see in me is only the possibility you're seeing in yourself, whether you're conscious of it or not. And so from an individuality standpoint, going back to some of those leaders I mentioned, something that's been really powerful in the mentors I've worked with as well, and now my own philosophy, what's been really, really powerful is how do we bring out people's individuality and just have them own who they are in their weirdness, their uniqueness, their art, their unique expression. How do we invite them to fully own that as a gift to the world? And I believe that the best way to do that, the best way to do that is to own your individuality, to own your power, your light. And to the degree that you do that, this is where, now we're going to go full circle, is some of the leaders, again, that I've studied and in my own journey now as well, of having to do less to be experienced as someone that's magnetic and influential. To the degree that someone is experienced as magnetic, influential, powerful, is also, I believe, to the degree that they're owning their full power and light, that they're owning their individuality, and that they know who the fuck they are. And that everything else we've talked about, they also keep check on it, right? Agreements, making our word law, checking in with ourselves, how are we impacting others through everything that we talked about. But the main thing is, to what degree have I claimed, owned, and accepted that I'm it? My full power, my full light. And so from that lens, if we were to go really deep into the spirituality and science and quantum mechanics around all of this, what you see is that simply put, the more you own that and you accept it and you embrace it, your energy field literally expands. You're just bigger. You feel bigger. Doesn't mean like you get taller, although I won't even go there, but science shows you literally probably do. You feel bigger in your energy. People might tell you like, well, you just feel different. You might start to magnetize and attract new people who are also in that vibration, right? You start to get around more people who are also owning their power, shoulder to shoulder. It would make sense. You're now a match for those type of relationships. So the big invitation is, to what degree have you decided that you're it, that you are phenomenal, that you are amazing, that you are divine, that you are beautiful, that you are more powerful than your mind can even fathom? To what degree has that been accepted in your nervous system, in your mind? And when you fully own that and you fully embrace it, again, you can keep doing everything else we talked about. And of course, do the doing, like we still got to send emails or whatever else we do. All of that comes secondary. And so this is where I think the main leadership shift that's happening. And believe me, I've trained with so many leaders, especially in the corporate world, hundreds and hundreds. And so many of them are so wrapped up. And what do I need to do, physically do, to be more of that type of leader? And then we go back to everything else we've talked about. Well, where are you out of alignment or out of integrity with your agreements, with your word? Are you following through with your own word? How are you taking care of yourself? Do you love yourself? Do you accept yourself? Have you claimed that you yourself are amazing? All of that beautiful stuff. And I've seen some leaders, even in the corporate world, where other leaders who do try and do all the right things, they are dumbfounded. They're like, what the hell? They even get pissed off. The ego's like, yeah, but I'm doing all the right things. Why are they still getting the promotion and more money and whatever? And I'm telling you, some of the mentors I've worked with now, they just fully own their value. And this has been part of my journey too. Now that my work is I've even seen more value in my own work and how I'm bringing it together. And I've decided it is valuable. I am valuable. And therefore, it would make sense that when we decide that we're valuable, that we're it, just like those leaders, even in the corporate world, it would make sense you're more of a match. If money is energy, and we're not even going to go into it on this call, but if money is energy and you decide that you're fucking powerful, that you love yourself and you raise your energy, would it make sense that you are now a match for more money relative to it being energy? So if you raise your energy by way of reclaiming it and taking your power back and your field grows, your energy is higher, you have more energy, then you are more valuable from the lens of having a higher energy. So it would make sense that you have a higher exchange. So that also started to hit me. I'm like, oh, well, duh. That would make sense. It would make sense to me, because value is not always how much value I'm. I really don't want to get into this super deeply on this call, but the point is, it's also recognizing that your presence, your power, your light, your gift of who you are inherently is valuable. Inherently is valuable. Now, how that manifests itself in the marketplace, that's a whole different workshop and masterclass that we can talk about. But the point is, to the degree that you want to make, let's just say you want to make a certain amount of money, is to what you can have 100 offers. But if you haven't decided that you are valuable simply by the power of you being, just because you are, it's going to be really tough. Really tough. So the more you own your power and your own inherent value as a divine human, your value just increases naturally. And then we get to talk about how that translates into actual offers in the marketplace. So more on that in another program or masterclass. Okay. We're almost at the hour mark, and I want to just see if I missed anything on my list. Nope. That's that. Yeah, I think that covers it. I do want to leave it on the note that every day, by the way, you and I and all of us it's our job to do the work to remember our power, to remember our light. Because some days the body does what it does, the ego does what it does, and we forget. We forget. Sometimes we'll reach for something out there to try and make us feel powerful. But we have the power to just decide and shift that. So when you forget, it's your job to remember. You can find different ways that work for you. Getting out of nature, journaling, meditation, music, dancing, whatever way works for you. But when you forget, remember what I'm saying. Don't forget for too fucking long, because you have the power to remember whenever you choose to remember. Even the other day, I was feeling sick, and I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. I'm feeling sick. I'm not feeling well. But even though I'm feeling weaker, I'm still here. Me, authentic me. It's just I just am who I am. I'm still powerful. There's nuance to that, but the point I'm saying is, as you stay connected to yourself, as you stay connected to your power, you can experience life and go through life without losing it or dropping it. So homework, very simple. 1, track your agreements and see if there's anything you need to clean up. Have you not followed through on any agreements that you said you would? Where are you out of alignment with your own agreements to yourself? Check in on those. Those are going to be big. And then going forward, so you don't necessarily overcommit yourself, see what you are saying yes to. And if before you say yes, make sure that you can actually follow through. Because otherwise, when we just say yes, because even if we don't mean yes, the trust starts to decrease, and we also start to lose our power, because now the energy is being put out and we feel like, oh shit, I just said yes to something I didn't want to say yes to, all of that. So notice how you're making agreements, notice what you're saying yes to, and then notice if you're actually saying yes to the things you want to say yes to, and make your no's powerful so that you can stay in alignment with your values and your vision of what you will really want. And when you're in alignment with what you say you want and who you want to be and where you're going, that again makes you more magnetic. Also makes you more magnetic. So wherever you're falling short of your word to yourself, clean it up. Really, really encouraging you to clean it up. The other piece of homework for you to practice on a continuous basis is when you walk into rooms, wherever you are, notice where are you making yourself, or where is the ego making you smaller or more superior than others. And just notice that. Just notice it. And if you notice it, by the way, no shame, just notice. Ah, interesting. I can see that mechanism is happening. And I do the same thing, by the way, when that part of me wants to make itself superior or inferior, I do the same thing. What I do is I go connect, or I find a way to connect with the human. I find a way. I find a way to stand shoulder to shoulder with that person, whoever they are. Okay. I'm going to open it up to see if there is any questions, but I'll pause here for the actual content piece. Really appreciate you tuning in and listening. It's a big topic, and I can probably go for hours on this, but I wanted to highlight really specific things on this particular topic. There's going to be more that I'm bringing forward on this. There's going to be a program that I launch very soon as well that's going to go really deep into the work on each of the components I mentioned. But I just wanted to create something. It came up a couple weeks ago. Just wanted to create something to put it out there for anyone to consume on the masterclass, and then I'll put up the recording as well. Okay, any questions from you? Beautiful. Okay, amazing. Well, I will get the replay up and I will send it as soon as possible. Really appreciate you all. Keep all of this in mind. And again, last thing I'll say is have grace for yourself on the journey. Take it one day at a time. All right. Thank you for joining, Lisa. Really appreciate you. See ya.